United States government authorized the Canadian company RevoluGroup to send remittances to Cuba through its website, an action that could alleviate the unjust measure approved by former President Donald Trump to suspend remittances, although it increases the transaction costs for the Cuban family. Our correspondent, Lisandra Andres, brings us more info on the repercussions in the Caribbean island.
On Thursday, a Canadian company was authorized to send remittances to Cuba, although at a much higher cost for the Cubans who transfer money for the United States to their relatives on the island.
What they told me was to convert it to euros, and that in a practical sense, to get $100, you would have to be put $170 on that side to get 100 here. That is what they say. I don't know if it's real or not. I think it's excessive. I would like to see what reason they give for this 30% increase. To whom would this rate increase go? Because I don't think it would benefit the family's members. It is always the right thing to do, because even though there are differences between the two countries, it is a right for the people and the relatives we have there to be able to help the family here.
To maintain the blockade, we cannot develop economically, and if we cannot develop economically, we need someone to help us in some economic way. Yet, if they remove the blockade, we wouldn't need any remittances. Not for me in particular, but for people who have family members abroad. Sending remittances is an alternative to improve their economic situation. The company RevoluGroup announced on March the 3rd that the remittances will be deposited in the accounts of Cuban citizens in the freely convertible currency accounts of the Bandec, BP8, and Metropolitan Cuban banks.
What was this time of suffering worth for? Nothing, because what they want to achieve they couldn't do it, and those who suffer as always were the Cuban families.
However, experts say, although the measure is a relief, the prohibition adopted by the Donald Trump administration for regular sending of remittances to the island persists.
A Canadian remittance company has been allowed, in this environment of absolute siege, of 243 measures still in force, to send remittances to Cuba in a much more expensive way than they were before, without clearly changing the rules of the game. I would say, making a sort of analogy, that is like having someone on the floor with a boot of his neck, asking him to breathe, and then allowing another person to come and give him a small hose with oxygen, also step on with the same boot, and charging him a very high price for that oxygen.
In October 2020, the Donald Trump administration terminated Western Union's relationship with Cuban financial institutions in charge of the processing of remittances, which caused Cuban families to have to resort to irregular ways to send their money during the COVID-19 pandemic, and made this process up to 6 times more expensive.
What the government of the United States, which right now has an extremist discourse on human rights, of the defense of peace and freedoms, should do is to be consistent and treat Cubans, not the government, but Cuban families, to be consistent with that rhetoric and treat them as human beings, and not as people who should be harassed, persecuted, and to whom a right is conferred to a wrong.
Although during his presidential campaign, Joe Biden promised to reestablish the sending of remittances to Cuba, he has maintained this prohibition since his arrival at the White House. The unjust measure and the economic damage to Cubans on both shores remains in force.
Lisandra Andrés, teleSUR, La Habana, Cuba.